start video. Hope people can see me. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have with us in the council chambers at the community center, we have Councillors Bray, Lamb, and Nash. And we have Councillor Woods online on Zoom calling in for today's meeting. And we have our CAO clerk, Michelle Hendry, and our fire chief, Bob Whitman. And we have two guests here in the room. So welcome to everybody. We'll start the meeting as we usually do with the playing of our national anthem, followed by the Aboriginal land acknowledgement. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional unceded and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. I'll now ask if any councillor has a pecuniary interest to declare in today's proceedings. Okay, hearing none, let the record show that there was no pecuniary interest declared. So our first motion tonight would be to approve the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Okay, I see Councillor Lamb moves and Councillor Bray seconds. I guess I should just check. Councillor Woods, you can hear us all right, can you?
Loud and clear, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Okay, it's moved and seconded that the agenda for this meeting be adopted as circulated. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Councillor Bray?
Yes.
Councillor Lamb?
Yes.
Councillor Nash?
Yes.
Councillor Woods?
Yes.
Mayor Comrie?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. And we do have a presentation this evening with regard to our landfill sites. So for that, we'd like to move into committee of the whole. Could I get a mover and seconder to do that, please? Councillor Lamb. Seconder, Councillor Bray. Thank you. that we move into committee of the whole.
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That's carried. We're in committee of the whole at 4:10 PM.
Okay, thank you. We have with us this evening on Zoom, Colin Ross from Azimuth Environmental. And I believe that he's going to present to us the report that they've provided, which you'll see a copy of the slides in the agenda package. So Colin, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Okay,
You
hello
sh-
everyone.
You should be able to put your PowerPoint up on the screen, Colin. I've allowed you to share.
Oh, okay. Second here.
Okay, that's great. We can see that. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, as you mentioned, my name is Colin Ross. I work for Azimuth Environmental Consulting. We've been involved with the municipality and their landfill sites for probably about 11 years. So at the request of Dave Creaser, he just wanted me to provide kind of a summary of both sites and some of the details related to those, kind of including the history, lifespan, functionality, liabilities, and responsibilities. So I guess an overview of everything is the municipality currently operates 2 landfill sites, that basically service the north and south portions of the municipality. They're remnant sites from former townships before amalgamation. So both of them do have some history there. They service the municipal residents and businesses with self-haulage. There is no curbside collection. They also operate as transfer stations for a number of diversion items, which are collected and transferred to other sites for recycling or disposal. Tires, e-waste, metal, other items like that. Both sites operate as natural attenuation landfills, which basically means that the leachate generated at the sites is managed through natural processes to ensure that they meet compliance criteria with the Ministry of Environment. This is different than what would be considered engineered landfills that might have liners or leachate collection systems. These types of sites are fairly common for small municipalities that are rural and have a small scale. So these types of sites are very common across, Parry Sound, Muskoka, well, across the province really, but with this type of facility. We'll start with the Dunchurch York Street landfill first. Our understanding is that it's been operating since the 60s. It's not a big site, so it's a lot of the waste, like the growth in the waste volume, has occurred in the past 30 years. Prior to that, kind of common practices for these types of sites was to burn waste, such that the actual waste volume didn't really increase. A lot of those practices were kind of cut in the 90s, and more contemporary methods were used. Remaining capacity for the site at the end of 2022. We had just done a recent survey a few weeks ago. We just haven't had a chance to kind of go through the numbers and figure out the volumes for 2023, but generally they're pretty consistent. So at the end of 2022, there is a remaining volume of 5,000 cubic meters. There's an annual fill rate of 450 to 1,000 cubic meters. There's a bit of variance just because it is a small site. Our method of calculating it with a topo survey and cover material additions vary year to year. So it is a bit of a range, but generally we look at that as a lifespan of 5 to 11 years, more likely on the higher end of that range. We know that, our calculations are based on kind of the active area, but there is some perimeter areas that weren't included just to be more conservative, because we do need to kind of utilize that area for grading of the site to make sure that, it kind of falls in line with what we need to be for site closure and appropriate slopes. Overall, the past few years, there has been an improvement in operations. So I think that the range of volume or the annual volume is probably on the lower end compared to what it has been historically. So probably closer to that 450. What has occurred is we've been trying to suggest that, if we take a more strategic approach to filling, where we fill a smaller area, have a defined kind of cell structure, it allows us to use less cover material, which ultimately reduces the amount of volume going into the landfill that is waste. Other things that have been done is we're using ground wood or yard waste material as cover material, so we're not importing any material. So you're kind of using a form of waste as cover material instead of other material, which creates efficiencies. Operations have changed over the past year or so to divert all yard waste, and I believe construction materials, but Dave Priester might have a bit more information on this. I don't know a lot of the ins and outs of the operations, but just being there and seeing it, I know that there has been some shifting in where things go between the two sites. So that material, as I mentioned before, is ground up and used as cover material, which has created efficiency in both this site and the other site. And just with the limited space at Dunchurch, the yard waste was not able to be really handled as well. Historically, it was burned when there was space and a pit to do it, but at the direction of the fire department a few years ago, that practice was ended. The most recent site environmental compliance approval, which is a document that basically governs operation of the site, was done in 2013 at the request of the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And this was basically just to formalize the informal collection of small amounts of household hazardous waste that are left at the site or throughout the municipality, such that it's handled correctly and disposed of. Environmental monitoring has occurred at this site since about 1997. A total of 7 groundwater monitors and 3 surface water locations are kind of part of that program, and it's been pretty consistent for a number of years, probably close to 15 to 20 years. And these are spaced out across the site to delineate where leachate is found relative to the waste area, and to characterize what the leachate strength is at the site. Ultimately, everything kind of is directed to the north based on local topography and the general environmental setting. The wetland feature that kind of abuts it to the north is a receptor of any surface runoff or leachate generated at the site. And that feature provides natural attenuation to the leachate through the clay soils that are present in peat, which impede flow and make sure that the groundwater is flowing quite slowly, and natural processes in the wetlands are further able to attenuate the landfill impact, such that there really isn't much of an influence by the time it gets to the site boundary to the west. Conditions with respect to ground and surface water quality have been relatively consistent for the period of record, which is expected. At the site is considered a steady state. Small amount of waste that's put into the site, and the ability of the natural environment to kind of mitigate or attenuate those items is sufficient, such that it's measurable, but we don't see much of an increasing trend aside from the perimeter of the waste. Everything else beyond that is fairly steady. So overall, I think the site is functioning well based on the current configuration. The site was expanded a small degree back in 2011, I believe. But further expansion of the site, I think, is limited based on the, the size of the site, distance to property boundaries, and the wetland feature, such that, the remaining capacity we have is essentially it for the site. I think the future use for the site would be best served as a waste transfer site when we get to the point where the actual landfill, can no longer operate with acceptance of waste. And this just illustrates the layout of the site. It's a little small, but you can see the purple kind of hatching is the wetland feature. And everything kind of moves north from where the waste area is into that feature and then migrates to the west towards the lake. So the monitoring spots we have on the west end near the property boundary show a significant reduction from concentrations that are found closer to the site. And everything is shown to meet provincial guidelines. There are some parameters that are elevated, but a lot of it has been interpreted to just represent the natural elevations of parameters related to the wetland feature itself. There are some elevated nutrients and metals that are present there just naturally because of the peat and clay soils associated with the wetland. And this is kind of a bit of a schematic showing kind of where the site's going. The purple area, we've almost kind of filled out the perimeter of the site, and essentially finishing it off will just be creating the peak of the mound in the center there. So there's limited space, but I think as we get closer to it, there could be some efficiencies made, as there needs to be some closure of the slopes to the north and the west. So like I said before, there could be some ability to extend the site life a little bit based on that. So that's basically it for the Dunchurch site. The other site is Auld Road, which is at the north end of the municipality. Our understanding is it's been operating since the 1970s. Similar to the other site, our understanding is that waste was likely burned so that, the actual waste area did not really grow much until the past 30 years. This site's a little different than the Dunchurch site, which is owned by the municipality. This one is owned by the Ministry of Natural Resources, and it's operated by the municipality through a land use permit. This is more common kind of in the more northern areas of the province, and is kind of a relic of how things were operated before. And I believe that I think there was discussions on whether the municipality was going to pursue purchase of land, but I'm not certain where that stands. Note that the ECA for this site was issued in 1980, and it was a very basic document that basically just stated that the landfill can occur at this spot with no real governing, criteria aside from, the landfill standards of the day. And basically it's operated that way since it's been implemented. We did develop a design and operations plan, which is basically a way to define, how the site operates, what it can accept, what the footprint and, final contours will be. This was at the request of the MECP back in 2018. So we basically established that just based on kind of the physical nature of the site. It's a site that, has bedrock outcrop that surrounds the waste footprint. There's a bit of a forest or wetland to the north. So we basically utilized, the existing footprint and kind of designed something that would fit within that, but still creating enough attenuation capacity that, at least it gives us something to work off of for, progressive filling and that kind of thing. This site it's got a much smaller population base that surrounds it, so the waste volume is much smaller. It historically has had a smaller waste, annual waste volume. This might increase a little bit just with the increase of diversion from the Dunchurch site, but a lot of this material will be used for cover. So I think overall the increase is likely small, and it will just be, it will eliminate the need for, cover material to be imported to the site. The remaining capacity of this site at the end of 2022 was about 16,000 cubic meters, which based on an annual rate of 300 to 1,000 has a lifespan of about 16 to 45 years. Again, it's more likely that the annual waste volume is on the lower end of that range, just based on, you know, the way it's surveyed and covered material additions that were brought in at the time when we did surveys, which might have created a bit of a high bias in some years. Yeah, so the 2023 survey was done, but we just haven't had a chance to update that yet. Similar to the Dunchert site, more strategic approach has been taken, which again lowers the waste volume on an annual basis by using a cell structure and making sure that, you know, we're minimizing the amount of cover material and not spreading it across the site to require more cover material. Environmental reporting has been taking place since 2009, but has been more consistent over time. I'm not sure what initiated that requirement back in 2009, but we got involved in about 2011. And since then, it's been done on an annual basis, at least reporting and monitoring spring and fall to characterize what the environmental impacts are from the landfill to the surrounding environment. And this has been more well refined in the design and operations plan that I mentioned in 2018. Smaller site, and it's very well defined by bedrock outcropping. So the monitoring network is much smaller and is targeted through 3 monitoring wells and 3 surface water locations that again are sampled twice a year. This area, I mean, the way it functions, it's similar to the Dunchert site where everything kind of follows into the wetland area to the north. It's all bound by bedrock outcropping that surrounds it. So it's very well understood where things are going. Clay soils that are present in this kind of forested wetland really attenuate the landfill leachate in the groundwater such that it's not really observed further down gradient within the site boundaries. Similarly, surface water is measurable within, you know, proximity to the landfill, but by the property boundary, it's much lower and meets provincial criteria. Overall, this site, because it's smaller and has a smaller watershed, I mean, the attenuation present at the site is sufficient to deal with the type of operation and small waste volumes, but it's more sensitive to any changes. So if we were to all of a sudden shift all the waste from, you know, Dunchurch to here, it might throw things out of whack a little bit, such that all of a sudden the site may not be capable of providing the required attenuation to meet provincial criteria. But currently it still operates in a way that, you know, it does work. Both of these sites I don't think would represent ideal locations for new landfill sites, but they do operate functionally well based on the natural attenuation and environmental setting that they're present in. Similar to the Dunchert site, the water quality is generally pretty consistent over time, owing to kind of the natural environment and attenuation capacity of the soils and kind of wetland area that it's situated in. With the future use of the site, we had spoke to the ministry about, okay, well, how do we deal with this? Because basically the site borders a kind of a forested wetland area that's seasonally inundated with water, but not readily defined as a wetland feature itself. And they indicated that as long as the filling can occur within this area, as long as there is material, clean material put down, so you're not depositing any waste into the kind of the wetland area or surface water itself. So this is something that, you know, we've gotten endorsement from the ministry, but, you know, with the change in perception of these types of sites moving forward, it could be something that, you know, is looked at differently moving forward. So this figure kind of illustrates what I've been saying. You know, the landfill is bound between 2 large bedrock ridges, and there's a bit of a trough that extends to the northeast, and that's where all our monitoring locations are present. So we've been able to sample those, and it provides us a pretty good indication of what's going on and kind of the ground and surface water quality as you kind of move from the waste area towards the property boundary at the east side of the property. this map does show some other locations that are outside of that, and those were historic locations. Kind of leading up to us developing the design and operations plan, we had done some additional locations to get a better understanding of where leachate was present and where it wasn't. And it kind of confirmed that, our interpretation of, everything being confined within that bedrock trough is correct. And that's kind of why we targeted those locations with the 6 spots that we monitor. That's basically it. I think I covered everything off, but if there's any questions regarding either of the sites, I'd be happy to try and answer those.
Okay, thank you, Colin. I'll open the floor to questions from councilors, and note that our manager of public works, Dave Creaser, has joined us, and so he may be able to answer some of your questions as well. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Colin, for your report. I have a couple of questions. I'm mainly concerned about Dunchurch and the York Street landfill. But at both landfills, you've got, fairly wide open lifespans, right? At Dunchurch, you say, well, it's a lifespan of 5 to 11 years. Well, that's over double, right? And and at Alds, you say 16 to 45 years. That to me is like way over the boundaries, I guess. So in fairness to you, we have to budget in terms of particularly York Street, the closure of it and the transition to a transfer station. So what should we be using as that figure? Should it be 5 years? Should it be 8 years? I mean, realistically, by the way, I would think that our fill rate during COVID would have been more than it was before that, but maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, so how can these figures, what are they based on? What fill rate? So what should we realistically be budgeting for in terms of lifespan? For budget.
Well, I mean, it depends on your approach to, ultimately a more conservative approach would be to look at that 5-year plan and start making plans for it. I think recommendations have been made in the past to try and kind of deal with the remaining slopes of the site that are kind of beyond where we're actively filling. So if those are graded and capped, it would give us a better idea of, what is the remaining spots. Like I said, we haven't completely filled out the waste footprint. So a lot of that is a bit of conservative area to allow for, grading of those areas that have not been kind of finished off. So ultimately, if we wanted to refine that number, then a progressive closure might be initiated now such that it would help to refine that value. It's problematic when we're looking at the survey data because the site has been operated differently over the years where things have been moved around and different amounts of cover material have been brought in. So I mean, we provide a range just because that's the reality of what we're seeing with the numbers. But I guess the short answer is I think if there's concern about it, then a more conservative end of the range would be the way to go when looking at the future of the site.
So how can we pin it down, whether it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 or 11 years? What can we do to get there, right? Because that's a pertinent question in my mind. So, and when I think later on in the report, you say there's limited at York Street now, there's limited opportunity for expansion. I think what you're saying is there is some opportunity for expansion. It's just we don't know what exactly that is right now. Is that, have I interpreted that correctly? And we'd have
I think just based on it, it's more or less you have limited area that you could use. So I just don't know if the small amount you would get would be worth the effort of going through the process. But not
determining how much you're talking the process.
Pardon me?
Determining how much land there is to use.
Oh, I mean, we can run through scenarios on, what volume we can have that meets, proper separation from the property boundaries. I recall when we did it originally, there was some concern from the neighbors that they didn't, I think to the west, that they didn't want the waste boundary to go any further to the west, such that, it might have been a bit more of a push from the neighbors to oppose the expansion of the site. So there's a lot of things that are beyond just kind of like, this is how much volume we have if we look at the boundaries and the wetlands. But I
Okay,
mean, we can run through
my-
that process
my
to
final
see what is
question
available.
is, do you have any idea at York Street, a facility like this, what the cost might be to close it out and transition into a transfer station?
Not off the top
Are
of
we
my head. I
talking
know the cost
$500,000,
of
$1 million, $2
material has
million?
increased significantly in the past number of years, so I would have to look into it.
Would you do that for us and give us a ballpark figure as to, because again, we have a budget year coming up. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to guess, I guess, whether it's 5 or 8 years out and then determine an amount we need to put aside, but we don't want to be surprised and be putting aside the wrong amount of money, right? So
Yep.
as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's not too much money, if you could just, simply let us know, or, general ballpark number of what we might be looking at, that would be
Yeah.
important for me, so.
We can do that. In the past, we've done financial kind of items for the municipalities. I'm not sure if we've done it for Whitestone, that kind of outline long-term costs when it comes to closure and post-closure. But like when it comes to material costs, a lot of this has been, assumed that the township would, or municipality would progressively close the site. So we'll have to refine those values, so we can look into that.
Do you also know, sorry for everyone else, this will be my last one. Do you know what the annual cost of a transfer station is versus a landfill site? Like at the end, once we transfer over, we're looking at double the cost of what we have now, or do you know that?
I don't know that
Do you know
information. offhand. Dave might have a better idea just from what the tipping fees are for some of the diversion materials, but I don't know off the top of my head. There is value in maintaining. I think ultimately it is cheaper to try and extend the life of a lot of these sites, and I know a lot of municipalities do that because it is cheaper to deal with it or handle it internally than to tend to outsource it.
David, any comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think working with Azimuth and Colin, we've been working, I think, fairly consistently at being strategic and efficient in how we fill it and how we place the materials, which has really driven down the overall volume there. That along with the changes that have been made to send things to ALDS and not accept yard waste and different things. The other thing that's really contributed to the lower numbers is the use of the grinded wood material. So the wood mulch that we grind, that's really helped as well. So it's hard to say if someone else were to take over and use different approach, maybe more historic approach to filling, the number certainly could go up because bringing in material and using it that as cover, the amount of cover material and how you place it really affects your volumes. It really does. I think you can see that in the historical numbers. So that's really where it becomes a challenge to really pinpoint it down is how it's managed. Will it continue to be managed that way in the future? So if we continue on the current course we have, then you can get some better numbers. I think spending a little bit of money progressively closing the slopes and spending a little bit of money at that would certainly firm up our numbers for how much fill we have left, how much volume we have left. And that's a worthwhile endeavor going forward. The tipping fees are really, the hauling fee is one cost, and then the other, the weight of the material that's being received to McDougall is another cost. So we can look at our volumes, and we could estimate the weight of it, and then try and get some numbers for what the tipping costs would be going forward to transfer into a transfer station. I think that would be the approach we would use. But at the moment going forward, if we were able to add in some money into our budget to progressively close our slopes, to definitely would help firm up our numbers. It would also get us to closer to where we want to be when we close the site, drive the cost down. We have a pit ourselves. We have a pit, gravel pit, sand pit that does have some material. We do have some trucks ourselves, so that does help with the costs, keep the cost down rather than having a contractor come in. We have some access to maybe a little bit of topsoil as well. So clay, I think we also have clay in our gravel pit as well. So that if it's suitable material, we'll have to work with Azimuth to see if it is suitable. That would certainly drive the cost down for closing it out. But I think we're working in the right direction. And if things keep going the way they're going, I think 10 years is reasonable. I think we've been keeping our numbers fairly consistent and going in the right direction for the last few years. I don't see any big surprises coming ahead, but we should certainly plan for maybe a 7-year mark. I would think that would be more reasonable. And then going forward, if we do get these slopes closed out, we would have better numbers. I don't know if you would agree, Colin, with that.
Yeah. No, I do. And you make a good point. You know, when we're talking about a range, I mean, we're within the past year or so, like the improvements at the site when it comes to efficiency have been very noticeable. And, you know, it's unfortunate I didn't have a chance to look through what the annual volumes were for this year because, you know, it might further support a lower end of that range, more at the 450 rather than the 500 versus the 1,000 cubic meters, which again would kind of extend the lifespan to the longer end of that range as well.
Okay.
But it just illustrates the, you know, the difficulty in kind of narrowing down that range is because there has been variability over the years. We are making progress, but we don't have a lot of track records or years under our belt when it comes to, you know, those improved efficiencies. But
Okay,
yeah,
thank you, gentlemen.
with closure costs, if a lot of this, and it all depends on the municipality and the ability they have with equipment, staffing, and material is a big one. Then you can largely reduce the cost of closure. And we usually recommend if the municipalities have that ability to, as I mentioned before, do a progressive closure so that, you know, you're minimizing that kind of large lump sum fee once you get to, you know, the end of the lifespan of the site.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thanks. Our CAO would like to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one thing that occurred to me that maybe wasn't being answered in regard to a question that Councillor Lamb asked. So notwithstanding that closure costs could be modified and carefully taken care of, and there's a bit of expansion and there's good work being done. Once the landfill site is closed, full stop, and we can't put garbage there anymore, we have to look at about 450 cubic meters of garbage and hauling it, transferring it, and paying tipping fees. And as Manager Creaser said, we need to figure out approximate weights. And if it's household garbage, there are a range of weights you can use, but all those fees will be the responsibility of the municipality. So it will cost the municipality a good deal of money. So we need to plan for that. Yeah. Because I think that's the big cost as opposed to the closure. The closure can happen over a number of years. I've seen that happen before, but the minute you can't put waste in there, you have to find a place to store it and a way to transfer it. And you have to get approval from another landfill site, probably McDougall, and you pay tipping fees. So,
But all that's an operating cost.
that's an operating cost. Yeah. Yeah. Building a transfer station is a capital, and there's probably some grants available for that, but year after year it's operating. So I just wanted to add that in.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, Councillor Woods.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. Colin, thanks a lot. I appreciate your presentation there. I was one of the council members last term that was on the landfill committee and looked at a lot of the changes that we needed to make. I know that we do pull back all the garbage periodically and then cover it with cover material. So the cover material, if we're importing, that's gonna shave our lifespan, right? It's gonna knock more time off of us. So we're gaining more technically, kinda, I guess, by what you guys were saying, by using the brush.
Yeah, and that's difficult to quantify too, because historically a lot of the material was burned, which reduced the volume. So there's a lot of factors that play into like just the sites and the way they've been operated and filled have changed over time. But overall, I mean, if we are going to use brush and wood material as interim cover material, and we're not bringing in, I think historically a lot of times it was ditching material that was used, which is good to use. But all that, anything you're bringing in extra offsite to deal with cover is volume. So, you know, you reduce that and you increase the lifespan of the landfill.
And I'm assuming, I mean, we couldn't say, well, we're just not gonna cover it if we pull it back. We'll just, you know, do it every other time. Is there a certain amount of times we should be pulling it back and covering it and trying to compact it?
Yeah, the ECA, for all, there isn't anything defined. Our design and operations plan, I'd have to look it up, but I would think we would have recommended weekly cover. I want to say that the Dunchurch site probably has something similar. A lot of new revisions to these ECAs call for daily. So I think generally we make recommendations to municipalities. You know, you follow what's in the ECA, but you know, as much as you can, if you minimize the cover material, like whether it's, you know, putting a thinner amount, minimizing the amount of waste you have. And this is something that we've been pushing for with this site and a lot of other similar sites in the area. If you have a smaller area in a confined cell, it's a lot easier to cover it with minimal material rather than, you know, a large area where it's all spread out and, you know, your ratio of cover material to waste all of a sudden goes up. So that kind of fits in with the efficiencies and kind of the strategy to you know, improving the efficiency of both these sites, and it's worked pretty well.
If I may, if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, I may follow up with the cover frequency at York landfill is every 2 weeks in the summer, and then it goes to every month after that. So we certainly don't cover it more than we have to. We try and be efficient and we try and reuse our cover. If we can open up an area again that's been covered and fill it, increase the height and the volume, so we pull the cover back and put more in it and then use that cover again to cover it up. There's certainly efficiencies there, but we're not every week putting cover on it. It's basically every 2 weeks in the summer and monthly in the off season.
Okay. So is there a way that we could compact it? I know this has been thrown around the odd time before, but now, Colin, that you're here in person, if we could compact the garbage more, or if there was a way to do it, you know, big roller, big bulldozer driving over the pile after we pulled it back and covered it, would that gain us any time at that site or either site?
It's something that I know we've dealt with other municipalities, and to a certain extent, it's a scale thing. We work with the municipality in southwestern Ontario that, you know, did a formal, you know, waste management assessment, and their recommendations from another company was that, you know, you should buy a waste compactor, like a formal compactor. And I don't think that they really gained that much. The problem with that kind of thing is, especially at that scale, is you have to have a larger waste footprint to operate it, such that all of a sudden, you know, any gains you're making through compaction, you're losing through additional cover material. On a smaller scale, dozers, they can help. I don't know if you're going to get significant compaction if you had equipment there every day that was able to pack it down. I'm not saying you wouldn't. I don't know if it's going to be something that would be significant enough that we would really see, you know, measurable change in the annual numbers. And I think it's mainly just based on scale.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
If I may add to that, for you, Mr. Mayor, We have looked at that. We've talked to our neighbors and have talked to Armor Township, which has the Tri-R, Armor, Ryerson, and Brooks Falls. They have them. They say you need a good operator, a really good operator, so they have to bring in somebody every once in a while because their operators struggle with it. But you need a big area to push it. Like you have to open up a large area to really move that material around and get the sheep foot, or get the vibration of the sheep foot. And in doing so, you're opening up a large area that you need a lot of cover for. So that's the scale factor. We just don't have that big area to really stretch out and get one of those things to work. So what we look at is with the wood mulch be ground up, it helps break down any food waste or household waste. It helps break that down. It also breaks down itself a little quicker than, because with the oxygen and allowing the bacteria to break things down. So it does reduce the amount of volume that way. The other thing we look at doing is surcharging, which we might park some material on top of it and add a lot of weight, and then later we can move that off as cover. So there's different ways that we've looked at, and we have done it. You can see it in the numbers that work at the scale we have. We don't want to introduce a new process that would add more cover and actually work against what we're trying to do, add more volume. We're really trying to be strategic about it. So we are doing things. We are fairly efficient. We found a lot of efficiencies. Once you get to this point, I think it's hard to get more efficiencies. We've already done kind of the low-hanging fruit things. So I think we carry on and we start, we've got a limited number, our total volume that we're allowed in the site. So once we start progressively closing it off, then that allows for us to know what our numbers we can go elsewhere, let's say in height, if I'm correct, Colin, in saying so.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of saying the same thing. And the preloading is a good thing to do, and I didn't really think about that, but if it's been done, if that does make sense, especially if it's material you got to use anyway at the site. Alternatives that we've seen at other landfills have been large metal plates that you can put on top of a waste area. Then you don't actually have to put any physical material on for cover, and it doesn't consume volume. Problem is you need equipment to handle that. You have to have a very defined working area, and at the end of the day, we are using waste material, wood waste material. So you got to put that in the site anyway. So I don't think you're any further ahead with that, but that is an alternative option that we have seen at sites like this.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah,
Let's move on.
I'll take a few more questions, but
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colin, thank you for your presentation. I guess I have several questions. I guess I'll start. I think somebody just talked about preloading, and I know Ald's landfill much better than York Street. But I know for Ald's landfill, as an example, people have dumped garbage in the same spot year after year after year after year. Kind of hole gets dug out, it gets thrown to the side, little stuff gets covered. But I guess a couple things. I've never been, I guess myself, and I think it's well known, I've never been really in favor of the mulching. I think it costs a lot to mulch. And I guess just a couple questions from other landfill sites around. Is it customary that wood chips, like brush, is brought into a landfill on a landfill site, chipped on the same site and used for cover? Is that a common occurrence? It sounds like it is. I just want to make sure that you see that on a lot of other municipal landfill sites. I'm not talking about chipping it to have it sent somewhere else, but chipping it in the same landfill to be used as a cover material. Is that a common occurrence?
I would say it's fairly common with the scale of site that's common in the area. Most of the other ones we deal with in kind of Perry Sound district is a similar operation. I mean, when you look at the yard waste that comes in, on a larger scale with bigger municipalities, you could develop kind of a compost facility or mulching where you can kind of process it to a product where it can be exported from the site. But again, it's a scale thing where it's not incredibly feasible for a small municipality or a small site. So I'd say most of them, it started with kind of the wood waste, the yard waste, and it's kind of progressed where a lot of municipalities are separating the wood waste, construction, demolition waste, and that's ground up and used the same way. So I'd say it's something that's kind of developed more recently, maybe in the last 5 to 10 years at a lot of sites as kind of the most strategic way to deal with cover material.
Perfect. And that kind of led into my second question. For the clean yard waste, I'll say brush and stuff like that, brush leaves that are broken down.
Yeah.
If that could be used off-site, would it be beneficial for, like, example, covering trails as mulch? Or we also have I think an empty quarry. Is it possible, or would that need to be another landfill site that you could take brush material to, chip it and stockpile it at a quarry or something like that? Or is that not permitted with the ministry?
Well, I mean, that's an operation. So, I mean, some municipalities might do that at their landfill site. They might do it at a transfer site, or they might develop a separate site to do that. Typically, it's done at existing either waste transfer sites or landfills because it can be an added process within an existing ECA. Whereas if you were to develop it at a new site, then all of a sudden you're developing a new waste management site for the purposes of just doing that one thing.
Yeah,
So,
okay, that's
yeah,
what I wasn't sure on, if you need a permit, if you were gonna dump your.
yeah, you would
brush
have to go through the
on an old
ministry to
quarry
get
or
an
whatever,
ECA.
and you're answering that and saying, yes, you would need to. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And even if you were to do it at one of the landfill sites, it's still a separate kind of ECA item to deal with kind of compost operations, which will require a new operations plan. It could require some additional monitoring. I wouldn't think so at a landfill site, but if it was at a transfer facility that didn't have a landfill or a monitoring program, it might trigger that. So
Perfect.
it's something where if you had the space at either of the sites to do, it would make sense. I just don't know if it's feasible at either of them to get kind of the scale you need to do it.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Then 2 other questions just to finalize here. The purpose of the cover material, the interim cover material,
Yeah.
is it for fire or is it for like odor and smell?
It's for a number of things, odor and smell, like that's one. Wind-blown waste, and more commonly up where you guys are, it's animal bears, anything to kind of prevent the waste from landing up in the woods surrounding the landfill.
Yeah, so if it is for that, could we not use, if there's 10 truckloads of branches that are brought in, could we not use that as cover material without running it through a grinder? Like, I know if I dump a load off at a Miller's transfer station, they pick it up in a backhoe, it's crushed, they pick it up and I'll say the claws or the thumbs on the back of machines, they crush it up smaller, they drive over it, and it's pulverized pretty small. Could you do that and use it as cover material? Or does the cover material need to be shredded through an industrial chipper first to be considered cover material?
Formally, I don't think it has to be. I'd have to look at the wording specifically on the ECA, but yeah, I think as long as you're doing something that covers it up, then it would, you might have an MOE inspector come out and go, well, that does that. We don't like the way that's being done, but I don't know if there's anything specifically that states you can. From a functional perspective, it might create some limitations on, depending on how bulky it is, just from operating and kind of moving things around, that it might be more cumbersome.
Yeah, okay, and my final question is, and I think it's already been asked by Councillor Lamb at the start, but when it does come to capping the landfill at the very end, how deep does the capping need to be? Is it 1 foot cover, 2 foot cover of material to go over the entire site? I'm just curious how deep that cover material will need to be.
Number off the top of my head, I want to say it's 70 centimeters to a meter.
Okay.
I might be a little off on that range, but it's around that.
Yeah, so quite depth. And yeah, I think if you could come back to us with the costs on what a capping would be of York Street as a budget, and then a budget on a simple transfer station, I think would really help all of council out quite a bit in knowing those numbers that we know will be fast approaching. So thank you very much for your presentation, Colin. It is
Okay,
much
yeah,
appreciated.
and
to that last point, I think Dave and I might be able to kind of discuss it and see what kind of material the municipality might have on hand. And then depending on that, we can get costing on what, additional material might be needed.
Perfect. Thank you both.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Bray, did you, any questions or comments?
No, thank you. I think all my questions have already been answered.
All right, thank you. Well, we're coming up to an hour, so thanks again for your presentation, Colin, and for answering these questions. And we'll, I guess we'll be hearing more about this in the future as time goes on. Anyway, I think now we should entertain a motion to move back into regular session. Got quite a few other things on the agenda tonight. But thanks, everybody.
Colin, could I just ask you to close off your presentation?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are you moving, Councillor Lamb moves to reconvene into regular meeting? Councillor Bray seconds. Can you call the question for us, please, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Motion is carried. We are 5:01. Thank you.
Okay, just a, well, and we do have a motion to receive this presentation for information, correct? Could I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Bray moves. Councillor Nash seconds. That we received the presentation from Azimuth Environmental for information.
Thank you. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. We can now move then to our consent agenda, which is item 7, and our consent agenda tonight consists of the minutes from the regular council meeting of Tuesday, October 17th, and from the special council meeting of Monday, October 23rd, and the unfinished business listed on page 4 of the agenda package. So if I could get a mover and seconder for the following, please. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of those items that I just mentioned. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the following council meeting minutes. That's the regular council meeting minutes for Tuesday, October 17th, and the special council meeting minutes for Tuesday, October 23rd. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receives for information the unfinished business listing contained in the consent agenda dated November 7th, 2023. Mover and seconder.
I'll
Councillor
move,
Lamb
Mr.
moves.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Woods. Discussion? If not, we'll call the question.
Thank you. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Agenda item 8, accounts payable. Can I get a mover and seconder that Council of the Municipality of Whitestone received for information the accounts payable listing in the amount of $185,726.86 for the period ending November 2nd, 2023. Councillor Bray moves.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wood seconds. Thank you. Discussion.
If I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I got a couple. First one would be page 46. Item 1779. It's for Fowler's Construction. It says Farley's Road Boat Launch, Granular A, and then the roads turnaround. $7,558.99. I was just wondering what the cost from Fowler's would have been. I thought we had used stockpiled material to do the gravel down at Farley's Road.
David, I see you're still on the call. Do you have an answer for Councillor Wood's question?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. When we were operating in during the early part of the year and doing Farley's Road, we just kept track of the material that we used out of our stockpile, and then we just replaced it. So whatever was used in these areas, then it was replaced, and we're just running out the budget to match that to what we used. So a lot of the material for Farley's was sand, but we did use some cover material on top with some A gravel, and that was just the material that was to replace it. So our stockpile, you may have noticed, was right down to do repairs on the roads. The weekend before last, we had some the north end of the municipality got hit pretty hard, and we had some issues with needing material. So we do use this material in the spring and the fall to respond to these events, and we had to replace that material. So we had some to get through the season. Fowler's is a difficult company to get material delivered from them, or even their sites open at this time of year because they're doing snow. So most of the trucks are transferred over to plowing. So we're just replacing what we used. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. A couple more. One on page 48 and one on page 51. And one on 48 would be for Sam's Country Cleaning, and one on page 51 is also for the same Sam's Country Cleaning. And it says municipal building, main office cleaning. It's not much money, but I thought we had a Public Works employee that was cleaning the facilities for us in the office and whatnot.
Through you, Mr.
Madam
Mayor,
CAO?
I can speak to that. We have an employee that has been off on sick leave for an extended period of time. And I'm happy to say he is coming back in the very near future, but while he was gone, we contracted out that cleaning. And once that person is back to work on a full-time basis, then we won't need the contract any further.
Okay. That's all. I'm done.
All right, thank you. Are there other questions? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, just quickly on page 51. Payment number 1818, High Tech Information Technology, $1,298. I take it that's Mr. Hildebrand's company. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. That's
That is
a
correct.
monthly
Okay, thank
cost,
you. Yeah, I
yes.
just, the name didn't sort of hit me, so. Good. So just back to Councillor Wood's questions on Farley. So you're saying at first of the year, when we put the gravel in there at the end of Farley's, we used the stockpile. And then later on in the year, we replaced what we put in with new gravel. And that's because my question was going to be, why are we getting the bill from the spring in November? That was because I know the work was done in like March or April. And so do I have that right, that we suddenly bought more granular A and whenever September, October to replenish it? Is that true?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct. We just track what we use and the pile, and then we need to replace it. The pile got right down to very little, and we did certainly need to replace it. So we do try and find efficiencies where we can, but we do have to respond. We have to respond to events, and we do need some in our our yard. The pit that we were using, which is the Tilson Quarry pit for Fowler's, that's been closed up for a time. So it does limit where we can get gravel, and the Fowler trucks, they had to use contract trucks. We still have a tendered rate, so they did honor our rates, so we still have the good rates, but we do need to replace what we used, and that's it. It was just tracked, and we just got around to
Did
replace.
you do the same thing for any granular aid that you used at Wawashkesh in the parking lot? Did you do the same thing?
Yep.
Is it all just Farley's?
No, it was both. I mean, wherever we used it, we just tracked what we used and replaced it, and you'll see it.
So this should properly say Farley's and Wawashkesh, is that correct? Or was there a separate transaction for replacing the granular aid for Wawashkesh work? Or did you not?
So under our boat launches, we don't have a separate item just for Farley's. It's Farley's. Sorry, not for Farley. I apologize. Let me correct that statement. Wawashkesh is included in one of our on that line item for our landings.
Well, yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm still confused, but I don't want to, for the sake of moving the meeting along, that's fine. All I was really asking was, did I miss another thing that said Wawashkesh? And did you buy more granular A from Fowler's to replenish the pile, is what I'm asking.
We
Or
did.
just the only transaction?
No, there'll be another one coming up in the future. We did some work out at the Bunny Trail on that, and we had to replenish that. So there'll be another one coming ahead too.
Okay, so is all this within the budget, or are we
Correct.
extending the gravel budget?
No, it's within the budget. We do plan for this. So we plan to have a stockpile that's within the budget. So when we take out of the stockpile, then we just track it and replace it, and it's within the budget.
Okay, thank you. That's all
Councillor
the
Nash.
questions I have.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. It's kind of funny. I had a question on the same one, so I'll try and keep it real quick, Dave. But I guess, and hearing the answers to both of them kind of answers a lot for me. But I would assume, like, how do I say this? If we're taking material out of a stockpile and then we're writing reports in the summer, we wrote how much it would cost for Farley's and how much it would cost for Wawashkesh based on numbers, but we wouldn't have really known those numbers because we didn't even have an invoice for it yet. So the numbers for the invoice, for example, for today of 2,900 for Farley's Road, is that the exact same number that we used in the report we got a month ago that said how much it cost for the gravel for Farley's and for Wawashkesh earlier in the year?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll get those numbers. Just give me a moment, and I'll get to those numbers from the report.
Perfect. And just when you're looking for them, I think, this is just my suggestion as a counselor. If we're using numbers and charging stuff months later, I don't think that's probably the best way to do stuff. I'd assume if we're replenishing the stockpile now, if I drove past our yard, those whatever, or $3,000, those 4 or 5 loads of gravel, there'd be a big stockpile stocked back up. I think if we're using material, we got to track it correctly. And if this material actually went to somewhere to the north end, to the Bunny Trail, should be assigned to the roads and not to Farley's months later. I think it can create some messy accounting practices later on. So I think that's something maybe we should shy away from. And if we have to do an internal transfer from one account to another during the year, that's done, but not charging stuff to jobs months later that didn't really go to those jobs. I think it just really creates an eye-opening for a lot of people, which I don't think we want. So that's just my comment on that. But hopefully the numbers that were used for April And in our recent report for boat launches is the exact same number that was now charged to us. Going to be the same for Wawashkesh. So I'm not sure if you've been able to find those numbers yet, Dave.
I'm sorry, folks, but you got to remember something. This is a payables, this is a payables listing. So when we need something, we have to buy it, we pay for it. I think the problem, this discussion was created by putting the word Farley's Road beside it, okay? It's in the report. It's not.
I would totally agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that
Yeah.
shouldn't be there. It's incorrect
Yeah,
and we
done.
shouldn't be approving it. And whoever approved this
Well, okay,
payroll shouldn't, hold on, Mr. Mayor, whoever approved this payroll shouldn't have approved it because it's inaccurate. It didn't go to
Well-
those sites. We're doing fudging of numbers, if you want to call it that. We're not saying where numbers really went and loads of gravel really went. People are stamping things and it didn't go to those jobs. It's a very big problematic thing. And we're trying to throw it to the side and pretend it doesn't matter. It's a very problematic thing. Things for jobs go to those jobs. They don't get charged months later and people rubber stamp and pretend it
okay,
didn't happen.
Can we leave this with staff to for the future? Anyway, are there any other
I think
questions?
Through you,
about-
Mr. Mayor, I think it's an administrative thing.
Yeah.
I think all, three counselors had questions because of different questions, right? Because I was wondering more about why we were getting a bill in November for work we did in the spring, right?
Yeah.
That's what came to my mind, right? And that isn't true. We're replenishing. So I think just different wording, and I think Councillor Nash agrees. If we just said, hey, granular, hey, and we said, oh, we're replenishing our stockpile and we're within budget, that would have done it, right? I don't think there would have been
Yeah.
any questions, right? So anyway, that's my take on it. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions about payables? Council Ray, no? All right, can we call the question then on this motion to approve, or to receive the payables listing?
Thank you. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Nope.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie,
Yes,
that motion, excuse me, is carried.
okay, thank you. Staff reports. The first one is a report suggesting an amendment to our notice bylaw. I got that correct? Yes, 9.1. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder, and then we'll have our CAO explain or answer any questions that you might have about it. Kind of an administrative matter. Anyway, the motion I'm looking for is the following: that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information report admin 2023-11, which is a proposed amendment to bylaw 04/2003. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approve an amendment to bylaw 04/2003 as amended as follows. And section 1.3 would be revised to read: published means published either digitally or in print in a daily or weekly newspaper that, in the opinion of council, has such circulation within the municipality as to provide reasonable notice to those affected thereby, and publication has a corresponding meaning. So can I get a mover and seconder, please, to start this? Councillor Bray. And I saw Councillor Nash, so it's moved and seconded. Do you wish to make any comment, Madam Clerk?
I will,
Yeah.
I'll just briefly walk through it. You're right, it's a technical matter, and it all has to do with the fact that we don't have print newspapers anymore. And it surprised many municipalities, because most municipalities have notice bylaws that assume it's going to be able to notices. important notices are going to be able to be printed in the newspaper. As I said in the report, we have 4 notice bylaws. One's an amending bylaw and 2 other standalone. And they need to be consolidated. In fact, this is something we've talked about at the municipality for a few years, and it just hadn't hit the top of the pile. But there's 2 items that are coming forward very shortly. One is the procedure bylaw, and the second is some amendments that are needed to our fees and charges bylaw. And by making this small amendment to bylaw 042003, it gets around the technicality of the fact that we don't have print newspapers, so it can be published digitally. I'm not convinced that people are going to see the digital version. I've talked to the newspaper and let them know that classifieds hidden under marketplace don't make a lot of sense. People aren't going to be looking in classifieds unless they're buying a car. They're not going to notice, shore road allowance or some of the other things we do, but we will technically be compliant with the intent of council's intent of the bylaw that it gets published. So this small amendment will get council over the hump for those 2 particular issues. We then in May have to deal with the budget and the financial statements, and that's another process. But in the meantime, in early in the year, there'll be an updated and consolidated notice bylaw. So hopefully that takes you through the reasoning, and the report is a little bit lengthy, because it was necessary to try and describe what we were doing. But that's it in a nutshell. And this will get council to be able to pass a procedure bylaw and an updated fees and charges bylaw. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I would just, while we're on this subject, make the note that there is I think it's item C in the correspondence. You will see there's a resolution from the Township of McKellar asking the government to amend the municipal act to deal with this particular situation. Of course, that might happen, but it's not going to happen in the time frame that affects our requirement to do notices. So this is still, strictly speaking, an administrative step that we have to take. Anyway, are there questions or comments on this? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, first of all, I said to Michelle before the meeting, and I want to say it publicly, it's an excellent report. To deal with what is really an administrative thing, but it's excellently written, and we're lucky to have you. So thank you. My only question is, when they switch over and they say, okay, we're going to do this digitally, hopefully digitally is a fraction of what print costs would be, wouldn't it? I mean, if I had an advertisement that was $500 when it was in the print version, and I say to the Parry Sound North Star, I want it digitally, hopefully it's $100 or something, right? Or what is it, or do we know?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know it's less. I don't know how much less it is. And as I said, I'm not convinced that going digitally, the way the newspapers publish now digitally, is the right thing to do. I think there's other methods the municipality can use to get information out to their community.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, like I get Parry Sound newspaper articles in my, I don't know what it is, my email or my Facebook or something that says Seguin did this or Whitestone did that. But I would have no idea how, if there was a job opening, what would I wouldn't get it. I guess I'd have to do what? Like go to the Parry Sound North Star and sort of look up jobs and go to, like, it's a very ineffective way to do notification, right? Like, wow.
Through you, Mr. You're absolutely correct.
Oh.
Most of us get the news feed. But if you want to go to Marketplace or go to classifieds or some, obituaries, some of those other things that newspapers, typically do, you have to go to the actual Parry Sound website, and then, there's a navigation bar, and then you have to click across the top. So you're right. It's not efficient and it's not particularly effective. This is just an interim measure to get you through the hump, so the intent of your bylaw is compliant, and then we'll find some other methods to do notice. I believe it's better.
I told my father when he died in 1972 that during my lifetime there would be no more newspapers. I think he would have rolled over at his grave. Like, I guess that's progress, but I don't think so. So anyway.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions or comments on this? So, we come to the actual bylaw itself later, do we, or no, or this?
Yeah, this is really just receiving the report for information, council approving the amendment, and then there'll be a bylaw further on in the agenda.
Oh, yes, okay, I see it. It's under item 10. Sorry, I was looking and I in the wrong place. All right, thank you. So if there's nothing further, did you have a comment? Okay, let's call the question then, please, on the motion.
Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash.
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Conway.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
All right, thank you. The next one is an expression, 9.2, an expression of interest to I don't know what, yeah, to take, not to take over exactly, but to do the bottle sheds at the landfill sites. And so here's the suggested motion: that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receives report admin 2023-12 landfill bottle sheds, expression of interest for fundraising opportunity for information and discussion, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone approve the following organizations to have access to the landfill site bottle sheds and associated revenue commencing January 1st, 2024 for a minimum of 1 year and thereafter until further notice from the municipality as follows. And for the Alds Road landfill site, the Ardbeg Community Club, and for the York Street landfill site, the Whitestone McKellar Lions Club, to be shared with the Cramadog Snow Riders Snowmobile Club for 3 to 5 weeks annually, dates to be negotiated and mutually agreed to. And that the approved organizations follow the municipality of Whitestone protocols for the collection of bottles and cans, use of the revenue, and annual reporting requirements of revenue and expenditures related to the funds received from the landfill site bottle sheds. Can I get a mover and seconder for this? Okay, I see Councillor Nash moves and Councillor Lamb seconds. Discussion. Councillor Nash.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a really quick comment. I think it's great that we have a couple new community involvement groups that want to participate in the bottle shed. So I think that's great. The only question I'd have is I think we said 1 year. Is it always 1 year, or might we want to say 2 years or something like that?
If I could speak to that.
Madam CAO.
Yep, thank you. The reason I said I started with 1 year is I wanted, these organizations will have plans for the money, so they want a minimum of 1 year. And then, you know, thereafter until council gives a notice. So that's really just to make sure that they can fulfill their fundraising goals with a minimum of 1 year access, and then thereafter. I don't know if council wants to do another expression of interest after a year. I don't know if it's
So we
necessary,
don't
but
need- Yeah, I misread it. So we don't need to renew it every year. It's
No.
1
no,
year.
that wasn't my
Okay.
intention, just minimum 1 year.
Yeah.
So they feel committed
Yeah.
to the fundraising.
That's great. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, this is really good news, and the Lions Club have done a great job up at Ardbeg, and I know they're doing a great job at York Street right now, so, because I hear it from several people, so that's all good. I only have a couple of comments. Cramadog wants to, are they limited just to York Street, or could some of these 3 to 5 weeks be also maybe include 1 week of the 5 or so at all? Or is it just, we want York Street kind of, right? The reason I say that is I think the Lions do a great job, and I think they have the capability. This is new to the community center in Ardbeg, right? So I don't know their capability for doing this. And they may need help on some weeks. So is it over the top to say that the 3 to 5 weeks could come from either Alls or York Street as negotiated? Or is it just York Street only?
I can speak to that. I can't specifically answer your question, but when I did speak to the Kramadov Snow Riders, they had always done York Street. They had never been out at Olds Road that I knew of, that they were able to share with me. So to answer your question, I can't see why Olds Road couldn't be shared with them, but they specifically asked for York Street.
Could we put in the motion, to make, well, I guess I seconded it, York Street or Alls or something so that it doesn't have to come back to us? Like, I don't know, don't wanna, because the second thing I'm gonna say is the library has always had a couple of weeks somewhere, right? And except this past year we have, right? But we don't have the capability to haul the bottles away. We have the capability to go up and crush them and put them in bags and do the rest of it. But then if we were doing it, say, for the Lions for a week or two, we'd say you haul them away, right? So we don't expect the full monies from them, right? So, and I don't want to put anything in the motion, but I want to be on the public record that the library would be amenable to a week or two somewhere, if they need help during the year, as long as we knew ahead of time. We don't have quite the volunteers that we would have had 3 or 4 years ago, because they're all getting older and it's harder. And so anyway, those are my only 2 comments. Is it a hill to die on that the Kramadog want York Street? No, not really. But anyway, that's all I have to say.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an issue talking to the Ardbeg Community Club. You're right, they're new to this. They may, they're excited about, they may end up finding it a bit overwhelming and appreciate a bit of help. And I know the Whitestone McKellar Lions Club have also indicated, although their numbers have tripled and almost quadrupled over the last couple of years, it could be that they would appreciate some help from the library. And I can't see either of those organizations saying no to those offers.
So would we have to change the motion or just leave it the way it is?
It may be helpful to change the motion, just not with respect to the library, because that's a little bit different arrangement.
I don't want anything in the motion on the library. I just want it to be on the public record that we may be asking, people can say no, right?
Perhaps what you could do is pull the to be shared thing in brackets down so that it applies to whatever.
Yeah, just make it as a separate line. Right?
Just say either to be shared with
Yeah, make it a
with
separate
the
line.
Kramadog Snow Riders, just
Yeah,
make,
that
Make it a
makes
separate
sense.
line.
Yeah.
It means it could be the Lions or it could be up or the community club up there.
I don't know, is the mover agreeable to making that editorial change?
That would be fine.
I would just make 2 comments. One is, and you'll see in the report that the volume of cans and bottles, and hence the revenue for for York Street, is significantly greater than the corresponding numbers for Alds. And so I think in the past, the sharing probably has been more around York Street. The other comment I would make is that this protocol that's referred to, as I recall, basically one of the elements in it says that if the party that is looking after a bottle shed finds difficulty getting the volunteers that they need to do at a particular point in time, that they can get help from somebody else to do it. And that's because the municipality has, our public works folks have a requirement to keep it more or less tidy. So if bottles are backing up, the bottles and cans and so on are backing up to be sorted or returned. They can't fill up the landfill site, so somebody's got to do it. Otherwise, you end up with a mess on your hands. So I think the protocol probably allows for this in any case. If the organization that has responsibility has a problem doing it, then I believe what they're required to do is to notify our public works people, and then if necessary, we try to get somebody else to come and help, right?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. The most important piece that we want to tell these new organizations is the reporting of revenue and the reporting of expenses. So if they actually turn the site over to another organization, I think at this point, the municipality want to know who they are.
Yeah.
If they're simply sharing it with them for a period of time and that secondary organization reports either directly to the municipality or to the awarded organization, as long as we know and understand the revenue and the expenses and that the expenditures align with our protocols, I think we'll be fine. And I'm seeing all three of these organizations as very responsible, and you know, I think the York Street has never looked so good. Of course, the Whitestone Lions Club has a bigger group of people helping. You know, in fairness to the Parents Association, they struggled with assistance. So I think all is well. Now, this is good news for the municipality, and knowing that all of this money comes back to the municipality somehow through these organizations to help the community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bray.
Yes, I was just going to mention that it's really good that these these organizations are in our community, and the money will be used within the community, and the Lions they do great work for families and people in our community, and I'm really happy that we have a good solution here. And I think it'd be great if we can also, if need be, that they are aware that the Cramondog Snow Riders are interested in helping. That's great, and will be part of their collection as well. And also that if the library wants to participate, I think that if the both groups know, then there's an ability there for them to participate as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, the only other comment I'll make, and I don't need any response really, but when you look at the financials on page 3 of 4 of this report, it's just interesting to me that York Street produced in 2020, 24,000 in bottles, 2021, 23,000 in bottles. And in 2022, it was only $15,600. And in 2023, we seem to be tracking up towards the 24,000 amount. So that it just seems to me that 2022 for some reason is low. And I see in here, we still, I know we haven't received the report for 2022 from at least on the council or to the council. So I look forward to the report from the treasurer being submitted in the near future, as it says in the report here. That's just a comment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. If there's nothing further, can we call the question then, please?
Thank you. That's with the amendment with respect to the Cramondog Snow Riders that both landfill sites would be considered.
Is this the amendment or no?
No, that's
full.
the motion with that
Okay.
amended wording. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay, number 9.3 has to do with short-term rental bylaw. And there is an administrative report from our CAO here about the status of that exercise to revise that bylaw. And I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive report admin 2023-13 entitled Short-Term Rental Unit Bylaw Update for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone request staff to schedule a hybrid public consultation meeting in respect to the proposed update to the Municipality of Whitestone Short-Term Rental Bylaw. Mover and seconder, moved by Councillor Bray, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Discussion on this one. Oh, sorry, did you have any comment first? Madam CAO?
Thank you. I do, Mr. Mayor. I'll just try to be very brief on this. As council can see, the update of the short-term rental bylaw has contemplated for a couple of years, and for various reasons it got stalled and there was some delays, and I think we're back on track. It's definitely a strategic requirement of one of the strategic actions of our strategic plan. So I've given council, and especially for the councillors who are fairly new, they wouldn't have known really what happened in the past. I think we're at the stage where we tentatively have a draft bylaw. I would say there's still some work to be done on it, but I think it's important that you get public input. A public consultation meeting where council simply listens to what people have to say. I know you're going to get a variety of comments, and people have very strong opinions about rental units all across Ontario. It's in the news frequently. But it's nothing new. It's just more obvious now that we have Airbnb and Verbro, and there's more people purchasing cottages and renting them for the purposes of being able to use them themselves and pay to the taxes. So that said, with all the information you have to date, I'm recommending that we have a public consultation meeting, and we're lucky to be able to do things hybrid now. So our residents that are seasonal and back home at this point can join us on Zoom, with enough notice that the meeting is happening, and an opportunity for council just to hear folks say what they want to say about short-term rentals, and it then allows council to move forward with draft bylaw and considering the next steps.
Okay, thank you. And just once again, I would just draw your attention to the fact that there is an item in correspondence you'll see later when we may not pull it, but another municipality is requesting the provincial government to legislate the operators of these like Verbal and so on, to provide some requirements for them to report to municipalities who's actually.
That's from the wonderful city of Burlington.
It is indeed.
Thank
Yes, it is. So I just draw that to your attention. Discussion. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I go back a long way on the initial committee on this. I don't think, I have my definite thoughts on short-term rentals, but I don't think tonight is the night to necessarily view them. Other than to say, we had one of the first short-term rental bylaws in the province, I think, back in 2014 or 2013, before anyone knew much about Vrbo or Airbnbs or anything like that. We did our best at that time, but but unfortunately, not many people paid attention to it as seen in the report. There's 10 or 11 or 12, licenses in the whole community. And I would put to you, I could find 10 or 12 people renting at the end of my lake alone, let alone in the entire community. So we need to refresh this, and there's strong opinions on both sides. I would put to you that when we put this out for comment, we're going to get, and I hope I'm wrong, but I think you're going to get most of the people that are against short-term rentals come out and tell us why. Okay, because certainly if you're renting right now and you're not one of those 10 or 12 people, you're not likely to come out publicly to the council meeting and say rentals are a great thing. You kind of put yourself in a little bit of jeopardy. But anyway, so let's see how it goes. I can say I do believe in short-term rentals, but I think they should be enforceable. I think the penalties should be strong, and I think we should be having 10 times as many as 13 or 14, because I would put to you at least 200 people in this total Whitestone area that are renting their cottages. So, the last comment I'll make is, do we, and I don't know the real answer to this, do we have a special meeting where everyone comes out, or do we just make a light agenda on a regular council meeting and give the first hour and a half to people making comments? Because all we're really would be doing at that is having people say something to council. We wouldn't be having a big debate or anything like that. I don't see. It's the time for people to come out and say they're for them or against them and what they would like to see in a bylaw if we do it. So I'm not sure whether it should be, as I say, an hour and a half of a 3.5 hour meeting or a separate meeting altogether. But anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
You want to respond to that? Madam
I do,
CEO?
through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Lamb. That's not a bad idea. I was just thinking, if councillor is going to move to one meeting a month, you're going to have very busy council meetings that may be complex. Now, my experience is January, February, March are typically not extremely busy months. I mean, we've done this before where we have one meeting a month for those months. They can be busy, but why don't you leave it with me? Give some thought. Right now we're preparing for the November 21st and the December 13th meeting, which I think will keep council busy. So my thought was to have this meeting in the new year. I don't know what council was contemplating, but we could look at one of those 3 meetings for the first 3 months. Come April, May, June, we start looking at contracts and other things that do keep council busy. So if you want to leave that with me, I'll give some thought to when we might do that and simply advertise. You're right that it's council's receiving comments and certainly not making decisions at that point.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Nash.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I had 2 real quick questions or comments, and one of them was just spoken to. I was going to suggest that, yeah, maybe instead of a special council meeting, it could just be added to the agenda on another meeting. So thank you, Councillor Lamb, for suggesting that. And the other one, I think it's great that staff are working on a draft bylaw. And hopefully what I'd like to see on it is something that would it's very similar to what Councillor Lamb's already said, I guess, get more people out getting licenses so that it can be monitored, and making sure that, those properties, have proper, fire alarm systems, stuff like that. I think we need to write a bylaw that is done in a way that people aren't going to run away from the bylaw and try and hide behind the scenes renting. Instead, hopefully we can come up with a bylaw that invites people to want to register for it. I know it's hard doing that, but hopefully we can work it in a way that it's advantageous for people to sign up and to allow us to know about it, which I think will help a lot. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are there other comments on this, Councillor Bray?
Yeah, my comments are, I'm not going to repeat the things that I agree with Councillor Lamb and Councillor Nash. I think that this is a great thing to have community input, and I know that there's a lot of people who are interested in having that chance to give their input. So I think that making sure that we have enough time for it, I think is important, and not trying to, if our meetings are pretty busy, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but you use your best judgment as to whether we need a separate meeting or whether we can add it to a monthly council meeting. I'm happy to leave that with you, Madam CAO, because I think it's important that we spend the time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Woods, any comments? Well,
Oh, sorry, Mr.
Oh,
Mayor, I
sorry,
got
go ahead.
disconnected there again. I think that meeting is going to be a very eventful meeting, so we should be sure to set aside enough time to have the public give us their ideas and their input, because I know there's a lot of people that are extremely passionate about short-term rentals either way, whether they're for it or against it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just say a couple of things. My feeling is that it is easier, I think. And I'm not I'm not a huge fan of creating a whole lot of extra council meetings that we don't need or anything, but I think this has the potential to end up taking longer than you think, than we would think would be good to have in a regular council meeting, and it probably should have its own meeting, to be honest with you. And again, the purpose is simply for council to hear the various issues that people are raising, and I think in the back of our minds, we can kind of, because there has been quite a bit of work done on this already. And, those who were present at the District of Parry Sound Municipal Association meeting that was held here in this room a few weeks ago, heard a presentation from a planner who was basically saying to us, yeah, you really want to license short-term rentals, and that's the approach to take. And so really the questions that people will have was, well, are we going to solve the problems? Are we going to have in that licensing mechanism solutions to the problems that people are experiencing? So that's the kind of thing that I think would come out in the discussions, and we make sure that we have a good understanding of the problem, so that when we come back with a bylaw, a final bylaw for approval, we can say to the public, well, you told us this is what you needed this to do, and we think we got what's going to do it. So anyway, that's those are my comments. I'm in favor of having this meeting, and as our CAO says, it probably should be in the new year, unless we discover that we've got a really light agenda at some point in the meantime. So if there's nothing else, can we call a question on this one?
Thank you. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
So if we could, I think if we could do our, thank you, folks. If we could do our bylaw, our revision to the notice bylaw, then maybe we can take a break. Would that make sense?
I'll just check
yeah.
with Mrs. Macri to make sure the meal is ready.
Well, okay, if you.
I'll do that while you're
We can
doing the
keep-
bylaw.
Keep going. This is the bylaw that we discussed, that we agreed to do earlier. To amend our notice bylaw to allow for electronic in addition to print media. Could I get a mover and seconder for the following, please? That bylaw number 69-2023 being a bylaw, this is a bit, sorry. I'll start again. That bylaw 69-2023 being bylaw 04-2003 as amended, or being an amendment to bylaw 04-2003, if you like, which is a bylaw to establish procedures for notice as required under the Municipal Act 2001, revised for the Corporation of the Municipality of Whitestone, be read a first and second time the 7th day of November 2023, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed the 7th day of November 2023, and numbered by law number 69-2023. So 69-2023 is a consolidation of these changes then. Correct?
Yes,
So-
it's simply an amendment to section 1.3. I wouldn't say it was a consolidation, but
Okay, it's amendment.
close. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, all right. So can I get a mover and seconder for that motion, please? Moved by Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Bray. Any discussion on the amendment? No? Okay, let's call the question.
Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
All right, so are we gonna keep going a little bit?
We need to
Okay, the,
got something in the oven.
oh, I see, all right, okay, thank you. Okay, so 11 is business matters. 11.1 is a memorandum regarding our updates to the procedure bylaw. So here's the motion that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the memorandum entitled Procedural Bylaw Updates and Recommendations, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone accepts the recommended edits, and that staff proceed to give notice of a public meeting for the purposes of adopting a new procedural bylaw. Making a mover and seconder for this one. Councillor Lamb is moving with a smile on his face.
Because I could see. the
Seconded by
end.
Councillor Bray.
Yeah.
Where was that, Councillor?
Yes, Councillor Bray is the seconder.
Thank you.
All right, so discussion. Oh, is it, oh, well, sorry, did you want to,
I-
do you want to kick this off, Madam CAO? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try to be brief. So this is, as Councillor Lamb said, the end is in sight. Couple of edits that I made when I looked, make sure that my mic's on, then I looked closely at the document and added a definition of electronic only meeting, a couple of other edits, and then I gave consideration to the fact that council will move to one meeting a month. And I thought it might be appropriate to just adjust a few timelines and also add a section for curfew, so that when you have a daytime meeting, that curfew looks a little bit different than if you have a nighttime meeting, which you may still have from time to time. You may have a 4 o'clock start for a special meeting, but my understanding is that the regular council meetings will be daytime meetings with a 10 o'clock start, and you'll see that further in the agenda. So those are my comments. We now have a new procedure. We now have an amended notice bylaw, so it will allow council to meet the intent of the notice bylaw. It'll be advertised accordingly. The public meeting will be held on December 12th. We don't have enough time to take the public meeting to the 21st of November, and that will give council almost exactly 1 year from where you started. So it's certainly notable, but it was a long journey, and I think you have a good procedure bylaw. And you know, the thing I like to say about bylaws and policies, and they're never 100% perfect. As you work through them, you may find things that you want to change or that simply aren't working that you expect would work, and then you simply do an amendment. But I would say that procedure bylaw is about 95%, maybe a bit more. So I think it's a very workable document. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And you can see in the memorandum what the changes are that the CAO has mentioned. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Thank God we're coming to the end of this, but you know, I always think it's the product at the end that counts. And I do think that although sometimes we're a little messy on how we get there and time consuming, But I do think this is a much better document than we've had in the past, so that's good news. I only have two very quick ones. On page 112, and they both happen to be on 112 of 215. One deals with 6.2.1 daytime meetings, and it says 7 hours. So I know it could be extended if we wanted to, but does the 7 hours, I thought I read in here somewhere about a 1 hour lunch. Isn't there a 1 hour lunch or something in here? So does the 7 hours include the 1 hour lunch, or do we sort of break and not count that? So is it from 10 till 6 with a 1 hour lunch, or is it from 10 till 5 with a 1 hour lunch? Is my question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can answer that. With the current procedure bylaw, it's been vague. Obviously, we've taken recess occasionally, but we've still considered that recess part of the 3.5 hours. I think that if you break, if you're not in a meeting, if you're having a formal lunch, which you will, and it may be 3/4 of an hour, you may not need an hour. It depends on what council wants to do. My opinion is that is and should not be part of the 7 hours.
Good, because when I look at the amount of time, and how many times have we been 3.5 or sometimes 4? I think one time we were 5, like 7 hours is really restricting if it's one meeting a month. And I'm okay if it doesn't include the one hour of lunch. So I don't know whether, we don't have to make any change to that. We'll just agree that that's what it is. So we don't have to extend the curfew until 6 o'clock, right? It's because you start at 10, from say 12 to 1 is lunch, 7 hours is 6 o'clock, isn't it? Yeah, so as long as we know that's what it is, then that's fine. That's good.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually think it may be maybe noteworthy in the procedure bylaw to note that. So there's no misunderstanding
Yeah,
as
so where
there was with the previous procedure bylaw.
Well, everyone has, I guess, or the majority have to be in agreement with it, but I just
Yeah.
don't want to get partway through. I think this is a good thing. I think it's gonna prove to be a little more exhausting than we think at first, right? Even though it's during the day, sit in a meeting with some contentious issues, which there always seems to be, for 7 hours or 8 hours. That's a long time, but I think we can do it. And and we're all in favor of it, so good for us. So where will we put that change? But should we just say after 7 hours, not including lunch in brackets or something?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's exactly where I would put it.
Yeah, so we just
Yeah.
amend it to after 7 hours, not including the lunch break or
Or
something.
just lunch or breaks.
Yeah, not including breaks or something, right?
Through you, if I would say if council, this is my opinion, through you, Mr. Mayor, if council takes a 5-minute bio break, I'm not sure we're going to be good at counting 5 minutes, but when you're clearly taking a lunch break, the microphones are off and the business has halted for a substantial period of time, I would suggest we could say lunch or meal break would be appropriate.
Sure. The second one I have is 6.1.8, which is just below. And I've made this point before, and I'm sure it's probably in the definition, but any member may have an item placed on the agenda by submitting and writing the item. And I just wanted to make sure that includes an email.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's my interpretation of
okay.
that.
Yeah, because,
It works fine. It works just fine.
okay,
that
as long
method.
as you can do it by email, because some of us aren't here all the time, and we're
Yeah.
not gonna write a letter and put it in Canada Post and send it to you, so, thank you. And again, thank you for everyone for their hard work on this. I think it's a good document. And I think we can go, and you know what? We make a mistake, we need to change it. It's within our purview to do that, so, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Other comments? Councilor Bray?
I was just going to say that I'm glad that we are coming to the end and we seem to have a really good product here. And I just urge that we get this going so that we can test it out and see how well it works and see what are the strengths of doing it, of the changes we've made to this bylaw and work with it. Thanks.
My watch.
Oh,
My watch.
Okay, thank you. Are there? Counselor Woods, any comments?
Nope, just glad we're almost at the end, the procedural bylaw, because I know how much work we've all put into it. And it'd be nice to see it come to a close. And I really hope that the 1 day a month meetings, even though they're going to be longer, I think they're going to work out to our advantage, and I hope they do.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else, I guess we could call the question on the motion that's.
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes,
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
All right, thank you. I guess we can do one. This next one is a fairly short one. We might as well keep going. 11.2, this is the revised municipal office and landfill sites holiday schedule for 2023. And the motion would be that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the memorandum entitled Municipal Office and Landfill Sites Holiday Schedule 2023, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approves the Municipal Office and Landfill Sites Holiday Schedule for 2023. Mover and seconder, moved by Councillor Nash, seconded by,
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
okay, thank you, Councillor Woods, thank you. So it's on the floor. Any discussion about this? Going once? Okay, not hearing any
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor.
objection?
Just want to make sure that it's publicized so that people up here over the Christmas season know when it's open and closed, right?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, we typically do. This year, the municipal office typically closed through Christmas, but we let people know on Facebook and through our e-newsletter and of course a notice on the door. There's actually only one normal landfill day that will be closed this year, and that is the 26th.
Yep, good.
When they would normally be open. But yes, the answer is yes, we will advertise.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, so let's call the question then, please, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes,
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
And that motion is carried.
Okay, so the next one, thank you, is 11.3, the draft regular council meeting schedule. Also revised since a draft was last presented to us. And it's the one meeting a month proposal. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone received for information the 2024 draft regular council meeting schedule, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approves the draft regular council meeting schedule for 2024. Moved by Councillor Nash, seconded by,
I'll second.
okay, Councillor Woods. Thank you. Discussion. Well, any comments first, Madam CIO? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I a couple, but I will be even briefer than last time. The regular meeting schedule is in front of you. We've tried to align it with the middle of the month ahead of the planning meetings. And that with the 10 o'clock start and with our new procedure bylaw, your 7 hours, not including lunch. So that should give you a fair bit of time to take care of the business. You'll also notice there's a tentative budget schedule. We're not asking council to make a decision on that. That's just letting you know what's planned. Our treasurer is looking ahead in terms of meeting dates and the final passing of the budget. So that will come forward at the beginning of the year. And those will be standalone meetings. Certainly the first two is very typical. The third meeting is often done as part of a regular council meeting, as is the budget approval, which is really just the passing of the bylaw. So we'll get you more information in the new year on that. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're already talking about budget at the office. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nash.
Thank you. I'll try and be really quick through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess a couple things. Hopefully going to one meeting a month will be good. I think it'll take a couple meetings to get organized for it. One meeting might be a little long, one meeting might be a little short. And hopefully after 2 or 3 or whatever, we can get into a groove. And just as for, and I know we're not looking at it today, as for the draft or tentative budget schedule, I'd scribbled next to it. I know there was one showing for January 30th and then one for March 5th. And then the last two, the 3rd and 4th meetings were April 2nd and May 23rd. And I'd scribbled next to those March 19th and April 16th, which were 2 of the regular council meetings. So similar to what the CAO just said, maybe those last 2 could be part of the monthly meetings on March 19th and April 16th. Hopefully we can get it just going forward. Maybe it's not next year, but going forward, I think the earlier we can look at budgets and get them approved, the better. So if we can push the May 21st a little earlier by a few weeks, it'll be great. But thanks for putting this all together and putting it out. Oh, and I did have one other question. Sorry. It was just on the Schedule B. It just showed recording times. And I guess that's just kind of summarizing what we've done for the meetings to date. And under closed, for example, what's the first close that's shown here? June 8th, it shows 2 hours and 24 minutes for closed. And I just want to know, were all the closed meetings fully recorded or just portions of them? I was a little lost when I was reading the length of the recordings for the closed meetings. Like on September 7th, it says 4 hours, 18 minutes closed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this isn't referring to recordings. This is referring to we know the meeting started at 4 and we know it was adjourned at such and such a time.
Okay. I read it recording length, not recorded length of meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Not
Oh.
recorded on a record.
Fair enough. I see where you're getting at. It
Recorded
was
space like this.
recorded in the minutes.
Yes,
Fair
thank
enough.
you. All cleared up. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Okay, other comments on this schedule?
Does our CAO have any comment on the March 19th or April 16th? I know we're not deciding today, but again, some of the problems are we don't know all the numbers, right? You're waiting upon levies and things like that. And as long as that can work, I do think this year, but I think this every year, and then I get happily kind of surprised. Last year our tax rate was, certainly abnormally high compared to previous years. And I think this year we're going to be very challenged to do a proper budget that isn't going to be significant because we've got a lot of things coming at us that we delayed from last year. We've got new projects from this year. We've got other things coming at us. So I think this is going to be really difficult for us, but we'll get through it. But I do always sort of think when we get into May and June and we're passing a budget that started in January, it seems really long to us. But that's normally what we've done. So can we do it, do you think, as part of regular council meetings, or we just play that by ear as we go on?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that the first 2 meetings be standalone meetings. And then at the end of the second meeting, council and staff will have a sense of what needs to be done next. That time of year is extremely busy for our treasurer because he's got the audit going on. And we do have a deputy treasurer who unfortunately has to be away for 3 weeks in February. So you add all these things together, and once you do the next iteration of a budget, it's not just the treasurer, it's staff that have to do that. So my answer is a definite maybe, that we could move things forward. And I think council will have a better sense after the first 2 meetings. And I'm not suggesting they be January 30th or March 5th. Those were just our suggestions because they're outside the boundaries of other meetings. And the last 2 meetings, in the final meeting, of course, it can be at a regular council meeting, and that's why it was pushed to May 21st, because that is a regular council meeting. But we have to give notice. We have to give two weeks notice, and you have to make sure that you meet the timelines. So you may very well be able to do a budget in 2 meetings. You might not need the third, but I would say it's a wait and see once you.
So can we amend this to put January 30th and March 5th in the attachment A? What time would we start? 4 o'clock or 10 o'clock? Like, and then we just put it in, and then I can put it in my calendar, I guess.
Right.
If you're saying we're gonna have them, why don't we just put them in and put budget meeting beside them and just pick a time? We seem to be on a roll for 10 a.m.
My suggestion is that it be a 10 a.m. meeting so that you continue with that tradition, I guess. And I think that'll suit the folks that you typically attend. The library people would want to attend, maybe even the recreation committee this year. But that's, council wants to do that. We can definitely put those in our calendars and start being prepared for those meetings.
Do we have to amend the motion or?
If council want, I would say we could amend the motion with the confirmation that I would say, and that the council of Whitestone approves the draft regular council meetings for 2024, and that council of municipality of Whitestone confirm January 30th and March 5th as budget meetings commencing at 10 a.m. If
Yep.
council is agreeable.
Sounds like I don't hear any objection from anybody, so maybe we can just amend the motion to say that.
Just a minute as I write this out. Okay, I've got the wording.
All right.
I'll call the question.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Very good. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash.
Yes.
Councillor Woods
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay,
I would say,
are we ready to break now?
we are. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna call a recess. For those of you who are on the phone.
The good news is there's not a lot of more motions.
No, we're fairly close to the end, but we will break for, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes probably at least. So we'll post the recess and turn off the recording. And when we're an unknown error occurred. Join this browser. Now it's saying to lost it. Particular council. Most have joined. Might be.
You're just there once.
Check. Okay, we're back. Okay, good evening, folks. We are back from our recess. And the meeting is once again being recorded. Right, so, we are at item 11.4 in the agenda. I guess I should check. Counselor Woods, are you still with us?
Loud and clear, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Well, I think we're good to go. So, we're at item 11.4 in the agenda, which is a report and update from the West Perry Sound Joint Services Board. So here's the motion. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the following from the West Perry Sound Joint Services Board. 11.4.1 is correspondence from Rebecca Johnson, clerk of the town of Perry Sound, by email dated October 26, 2023. Number 2 is the BDO proposal in an email dated May 19th, 2023. 4.3 is the BDO report dated June 15th, 2023. And item 4 is the Joint Municipal Service Board meeting minutes of October 11th, 2023. Mover and seconder to receive this information.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Woods, seconded by Councillor Lamb. I'm not sure what there is for us to discuss about this, but in any case, is there any discussion?
Let's call the question.
Okay, so I was all right. If there is no discussion, then we will call the question. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Number 11.5, which is correspondence from Amanda Vincent of the MNRF in regard to that update or in regards to the Cashagava Dam presentation we had. This may be in the same category as the previous one, but in any case, suggested motion is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the Cashagava Dam update from Amanda Vincent, Acting Supervisor for Bracebridge and Minden and Perry Sound Districts of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, dated October 18th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Nash, seconded by,
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
okay, thank you, Councillor Woods. Once again, Counselor Nash.
Thank you,
ahead.
Mr. Mayor. I have a really quick comment, and then maybe we might do an amendment to the motion, but when I read, it's on page 195 of 215, and it's the third last paragraph.
I'm
And
sorry, what page were you
I'm sorry,
one?
page 195,
All right, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
and it's the third last paragraph. And at the end of that paragraph, there's a sentence that reads, even after construction, the ministry will continue to work with the municipality on this divestment as retention of this dam does not contribute to ministry program goals and the municipality and ratepayers are the primary beneficiaries of the new dam on the lake. So when I read that, first of all, I see that they say even after construction. So what I'm kind of interested in is, when is the construction? Can M&R let us know when they're planning on doing this dam? And unfortunately, when I read that, I see a nice way of them basically saying, well, we're gonna fix it, but then we're gonna want the municipality to take it over because, it's not really under our program goals, and it benefits the municipality more than anybody. So I'd like on our motion to find out, when is this dam work scheduled to be done? Because right now, I don't think we really know when they're planning on doing the work. If that makes any sense.
Okay, that's a good question that you're asking. And unfortunately, the information that we have in front of us here, I don't honestly think it answered the question, totally answered the questions that, the decision as to whether and or when to replace the dam will be made not by the person who sent this letter, or not in her management stream, but by the director of engineering in Waterloo, in Peterborough. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said Waterloo. And my intention was to give that individual a call and try to find out try to get the real answer to the question that you folks asked when the presentation was made, which is, okay, so if we just do nothing, what are you guys going to do? Now, the last time I answered, all I can tell you is the last time I asked this question, the answer was, if you don't agree to assume it, we won't do anything. We will just sit on it and wait till something happens that causes, something happens to make the situation worse, that either forces us to act for some reason or whatever. So, and last year, because all this work had been done on the environmental assessment, and I couldn't get hold of the chap. He was away. I couldn't get hold of the chap that did the presentation to us, Engineer Khan. I couldn't get him. So I spoke to his boss, who's the director of engineering, because I know him. And I said, what's going on? Have you got money to do this? And he said, well, we can put money in the budget for next year if, and that was, I think, so I got the very distinct, well, first of all, he said, I have to go to a meeting, and I can't answer your question, but I'm going to a meeting shortly and I'll get you an answer. And the answer that I got was, yeah, we can put the money in the budget for 2024. So that's why they wanted to do the presentation, and they wanted to get us to agree. So whether that has changed, whether they're going to say, well, the heck with it, we're going to do it anyway, I don't know. But that's the answer that we need, I think.
And I think what I'm looking for is, we don't need to tell them if we're taking it over or not. We just want to know when it's going to be built. The other one is for them to ask us, right? So I think if staff reach out, it's simply, when is the M&R simply scheduling to do this work, and see where that question leads to. right? Is it scheduled for 2024, 2025? And see what they ask us. I'd prefer not to make a decision and have them build the dam. Right?
Okay, well, all right, maybe I gave you more information than you wanted, but I'm just trying to tell you, like, I mean, has there been a concrete decision made? I'll bet you the answer is no, but it's a question we need to ask and we need to find out, so I agree with that. Or at least I'd like to find out, I'd like to know. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I guess my read or recollection of it was they put all these dams in a request for funding. And we either get it or not, or, you know, and it was beyond the people that were talking to us, right? But, and, you know, they assess risk and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's going to happen. My impression was that's going to happen anyway, regardless of whether we make a call or we do anything. And I guess as I read this letter, they're not asking for any response. So my question is, why would we poke the bear? Why would we ask the question that is like the elephant in the room that may force their hand more than we want to? Like, why don't we just say, you know, we've got the letter, we receive it for information. They're not saying, please let us know your intention is to take this over. They're not asking any of that. So I don't know why we just don't leave it. And if they come back and ask us for some decision, yes, but to go up the ladder and ask, you know, you're going to build it. If we don't take it, we don't agree to take it over. Is this ultimatum? Is it like poker, or what are we playing here? I don't think does us any good. Because if they come back and say, no, we're not doing the work unless you take it over, I'm not prepared to take it over. And it was my personal decision at this point in time, because I don't see what's in it for us other than a great big huge bill to this municipality 50 years from now or whatever. I know it's a 100-year life and whatever, but what's in it for us? This is like Toronto's, you know, the provincial government saying, hey, you know, we're going to fix the 401 in Toronto because it needs repairs. And we're only going to fix the 401 if because it benefits your people in Toronto. And we're only going to fix that. And if you agree to take over the 401, you know, it's a different scale, but it's the same thing, right? And we took over Wawashkesh. I was part of that. I'm not sure whether it wasn't the same debate at that time, and I won't hide beside whatever decision. But when you think long term, what is in it for us? I guess it protects some people out on a far lake because the water level might keep going down, but we don't own it. We don't own 124. Why would we take over 124, right? So I need a lot more convincing to convince me to do anything, and I wouldn't do anything if it were up to me. I just let everything lie where it is. If they were asking us a question, we'd have a duty probably to answer, but they're not asking it. So I think we're going down the wrong route for either the mayor or Councillor Nash to ask, well, you know, when are you going to build it or what are you going to do? Just leave the thing, right? And anyway, that's my thoughts on it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? If not, I guess we can call the motion to, or call the question to receive this letter or email.
Thank you. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor Nash.
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. I have once again been disconnected, looks like been disconnected from the meeting. Wait a minute.
You are here, Mr. Mayor.
I can see you. Okay, George.
Click on the blue box. Or sorry, the blue circle right on the navigation bar at the bottom.
This
Yes.
says I've got a join meeting screen and then I've got a Zoom screen, join a meeting, sign up or sign in.
We do see you here. I can show you. So I think you can carry on. I'm not sure why that's.
All right, I will just carry on. I don't think I can't,
Obviously, your camera works.
can't see anything else, but that's fine. As long as it's picking me up, that's good to go. I don't, well, I don't suppose people have to even see me if they can hear me. That's good enough. So we are now at correspondence. And there are what, A, B, C, D to I, which is, I guess that's about 10 items, correct? And so we'll get a motion on the floor. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 7th of the November 7th, 2023 council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that council receive the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion action. So if I can get a mover and seconder, then we'll populate the list that we want to talk about. So Councillor Nash moves, Councillor Lamb seconds. Which of these would you like to talk about, if any?
I'd like to talk about E. Please.
So item E would be
The
ice
Electric.
cap.
ice cap thing.
All right, so E. Ice cap. Any others? No?
I was gonna say E also, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So, we've, well, I guess we should call the question on this and then we'll talk about the items, right? Is that how we do it? All right, go ahead.
Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes,
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion's carried.
Okay, so how about ice cap? What would you like to,
Yeah.
Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, I'm kind of dealing with this. I'm the president of our condo in Burlington, so I'm dealing with it from a condo standpoint, and we're going down a certain route. But I do think if there's 75% funding of, I don't know what the cost is, so 75% of X, I don't know what that is. So I don't know whether to put in a charging station here is, $2,000 or $50,000. So I guess I'd like, if I knew that answer, I would be saying, first of all, I think the targets are somewhat unrealistic, and I think a change of government will end up changing those targets. Is my personal opinion that within the next 7 years, you're going to have 60% of electric vehicles being sold. But the next government could change that in a whiff, right? But anyway, having said that, I see no reason, for instance, we couldn't put, say, a couple of them here, maybe one at Maple Island, one out in Ardbeg. That's 4, but I don't know what the cost is. So I would kind of encourage us to, if we could get a quick cost to make an application before January 31st to at least be seen to be leading the way a little bit, right? And the cost to us after the 25%, I'm sure is just the electricity associated with this. So anyway, so that's my thoughts on it. That's what I wanted to brought up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nash.
Yeah, I might be able to answer Councillor Lamb's question a little bit. For the charging stations, it depends on the type of charging station you get, a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3. Level 3 is like the super quick charging. And I think they're like $50,000 or $60,000 per unit. Ooh, give or take.
65 to 75.
60 to 75. Well, there goes Ardbeg.
They're not cheap.
No, I'm only kidding.
But if
Oh.
you get 75% back, then it's 15 or 20 grand, right? You
Yeah.
know? There's a
Well,
lot
what's
of,
the low, what's the low one?
I
for
think
you,
it
Mr.
would be like, if you were gonna do it at your home, it would be like 3 or 5 grand or something. But it takes hours and hours to charge your car at them.
Yeah, it would it takes a long time, like 8 hours
Yeah.
to charge. So you want at least level 2. I don't know if it's 8 hours, but it's a long time.
And I think,
And level 2 at least gives you, the way I looked at it, I thought, oh, a level 2 would be nice here because that means people traveling by would stop and they could go to the library, they could go to Duck Rock, they could go to the little restaurant, they could do some things here in our community, and it would be a good economic development project as well as and there are more and more electric cars. I don't know if you see, but there's so many that are up and down our roads these days.
yeah, and I think a level 3, it's like 20 minutes to charge.
Yeah, it's really fast.
Yeah.
It's more-
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm looking at a graph right now on my phone that might help everyone out. With the difference between like the level 2s that you would have for your house kind of idea, if you're looking at like a 4 to 8 hour charge. You can get another level 2 that'd be like a 2 to 5 hour charging system in there, 240 volt, 80 amp systems kind of idea, right? Something you'd run a big welder on in your garage basically for hydro to set up. If you get up into the level 3s, you're up to 480 volt systems. And 100 amp, 200 amp, 250 amp, and you go anywhere from $30,000 to $80,000 for those setups. But the top 3 in the level 3s would be like the half hour to 1 to 2 hour range that you would charge a vehicle in, and those low end 30 to 40,000 and high end as high as $80,000 per unit.
Yeah, I think, I'm not, I have never actually been involved in installing any of these, but, in this particular area, we have 3-phase power and we have, so it would make sense for Dunchurch. Our biggest at the end of a single phase 7,200 volt line. So, it's questionable how far it would depend on Hydro One. They would tell you, okay, this is how much current we can allow you to take off for a charging station. And so you're not going to get one of the really fast ones, as would be my guess, because that line is, it's a long line with a lot of subscribers on it. But, in any case, I would argue that it is worth asking these questions and see what we could get and what it would cost. And because I think Councillor Bray is right, to have a charging, we are seeing more and more, Teslas and other electric cars around, and to have a charging station here would, it might cause someone to stop to use this as a route instead of a different route to get north, and they might go through and stop and patronize our library or Duck Rock or LCBO or someplace, right? So it's pretty good, probably a good thing to pursue.
So is it fair that we maybe ask staff to come back at our next meeting and sort of say, here's the real cost of a 1, 2, and 3, and do some basic research? And because we have until January 31st to apply, right? I know in the condo, for what it's worth, and I may be out a little bit, but the panel itself costs us about $30,000 to $35,000 to put it down in the parking area in our condo. And then you have to get a minimum of 10 people that want to chip in and pay whatever, right? And there's 20 spots on a panel, right?
Yeah.
And then they have to pay on top of that to wire it to the parking spot and then meter it and all that kind of stuff, because we only have one meter in our condo, right? We don't have individual meters in each
Oh,
unit,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there's a complication there. And of course, if I go to the condo for what it's worth and say, so who wants to chip in $3,000 each? There'll be one person who's got the electric car, because the rest of them in the condo will say, I don't want it. I'll go outside in the parking lot where there is one, where the city is, and plug my car in there, right?
Yeah.
So there's complications to it, but you know, to invest a little bit, to show a little bit of leadership, I think is a good thing here, as long as it's not costing tens and tens of thousands of dollars to do that, right? So
Okay.
if staff can come back on some of those costs and pitfalls or whatever from, doesn't McKellar have some of these EV stations or something?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they talked about it a couple of years ago, but they found
Yeah.
it cost prohibitive, even with the subsidy.
Oh,
But that was 2 years ago. So it's worthy of looking into this further and getting you the actual facts and the costs, and we'll come back hopefully with as much information as we can for the 21st. And mhm.
are they a special plug?
Yeah.
It's like a dryer plug or something?
Well, yeah, a different, it's not the same,
not
but
the
it's,
same, but
it's
something like
a,
that. Okay.
yeah.
So
It is
same
something.
idea.
Councillor Bray.
Yeah, and I think that Benjamin John can be a good resource to find out more of this information. I think he has dealt with this like in some of his previous work jobs, so I'm sure that he would give us a hand in finding out the information.
Okay, thanks. Are we done with this item?
Yep.
If so, we are at councillor items. Anybody have any councillor items? Councillor Bray.
Yes, I just, two things. I wanted to remind everybody about Remembrance Day on Saturday, and even if you're not up here and able to participate in the one at the Legion, hopefully you'll participate somewhere, wherever you are, in remembering the people who really put their lives on the line for us. The second thing I wanted to bring just a little bit of information to you is that we've received information now regarding the change from the Community Policing Advisory Committee to a Police Services Board. And it's trickling in. It's not like all the information yet. The legislation has not been posted yet for comment, but should be in January. And the association, the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, is providing all of the different advisory committees and boards with some training. So we have started with that, and we'll keep you updated as to how things are moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Yes, you could.
couple of quick ones. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to remind everyone that the Hunter's Dinner is coming up in Ardbeg
Thank you.
Friday. It's always a great dinner. I know it was fantastic last year. I ate way too many desserts, as I'm sure the rest of us did when we went. And it's just a reminder, deer season is open, so you might see some blaze orange and a whole lot of people running around in the bush. So I would just advise everyone, if you're going out for walks, I always throw on my blaze orange if I'm taking my dogs for a walk down any of our roads during gun season. Just a friendly reminder for that one.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Wood. I was going to mention both Remembrance Day and the Hunter Supper. It's a good
Yeah,
Good.
through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll be at Balsam Road for the Remembrance Day. And I'll be at the Hunter's Dinners. It was fabulous last year. I love gravy, and there was enough gravy there for the entire province, I think. So,
And it was
Well,
good.
there you go.
And it's sort of a buffet sort of thing, like you can kind of go up and get what you want.
Yeah,
but if
yeah.
you want more potatoes, you go up, get them and whatever, so they do a great job, thank you.
All right.
One
Councilor Ray.
question, do we have to buy tickets ahead of time?
I know it's $20, I don't
But
think we bought tickets.
We don't have to go.
No, you just
I
show
think
up.
Kath called Muriel or Troy or someone.
Yeah,
and
Troy
said, well,
Burgess is the
Okay.
person who
said
would,
we're coming, but other
Yeah.
than that.
Hmm?
But yeah, you just kind of show up. Last year, Kat didn't know what to wear. She was telling me she didn't know what to wear, so she got up there, and of course, here were all the hunters coming in from the bush, right? So she said, well, I quickly knew what to wear.
oh, I was
Didn't
gonna say,
matter
she,
what I wore.
did she put on a nice dress? It
I don't
all
know
ma-
what she did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
doesn't matter what you wear.
no, it's
Because if
not a,
hunter comes, he
they'll-
said they'd been in the bush for a week and they were coming in for dinner, so.
Yeah.
anyway.
yeah. Yeah, and there were some people there are some people there. I mean, some folks who had just been out hunting and they saw it was on and they just stopped, pulled up their trucks to the side of the road and came in, right?
It's pretty good.
Which is what it's supposed to be, I guess, but, all right, very good. Well, questions from the public. I can't tell offhand. Hmm? There are still two people online. I don't know if anyone has a question or not, who's online, but, I don't see anybody responding, so I think we will carry on here to, number 15, confirmatory bylaw. You get a mover and seconder, please, that for the following, that bylaw 70-2023 being the confirmatory bylaw for the regular council meeting of Tuesday, November 7th, 2023, be given a first, second, third, and final reading and is passed as of this date. Who would like to move that? Councillor Lamb. Seconded, Councillor Bray. Can you call a question for us, please?
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes,
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash, Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
The motion is carried.
Now therefore, whereas the business of this meeting has concluded, now therefore be it resolved that this meeting be adjourned at, looks like 7:22 PM. Until the regular closed session meeting of Thursday, November 9th, 2023 at 4 PM. Or at the call of the chair. And I hope I won't be calling you between now and Thursday. But in any case, could I get a mover and seconder to adjourn?
I'll
Councillor
move
Bray
this.
moves
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
and Councillor Woods seconds. All those in favor, please.
Councillor Bray,
yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash, Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you very much and good evening, everyone.
Good night, folks.